I'd be remiss if I didn't ask for this board's indulgence. I'd like to read into the record two items. Between our last meeting and this meeting, our late coach, Joe Paterno, was inducted into the Pennsylvania Sports Hall of Fame. And I only think it's appropriate that we memorialize it on the record here. And the first is very short, the second not much longer. The first is something written by Franco Harris after the induction ceremony. Franco writes, 3 things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. That was a quotation from Buddha. In the first year or so after the Sandusky scandal broke, we continuously faced setback after setback in our quest for the truth. And during that time, the media had their own agenda and created a false narrative about Penn State and Joe Paterno that still exists today. The false narrative created fear, and people distanced themselves from Joe and Penn State. However, this past Saturday, which was October 24th, 2015, which, by the way, was held at the Valley Forge Casino, which is, I think, a property of Trustee Lubert, Joe Paterno was inducted into the Pennsylvania Sports Hall of Fame. I believe this is the first honor bestowed upon Joe since the scandal. Jay Paterno accepted the honor on behalf of his father and the Paterno family. He gave an amazing speech that I can only describe as a moment of truth for the world to hear. We are not there yet, but this honor shows that we are moving forward and that our path to the truth is having an impact. Success is walking from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. Joe told us to find the truth. I know it's been tough, and we have faced many difficult challenges, but we won't give up. We will keep seeking the truth. We want people to know that this has never been about football. This is beyond football. This is about who we are. It's what we do that defines us. Penn State is our second home. Joe Paterno is our family. And we are in this together. And the second item is the speech that Jay gave accepting the honor on behalf of his father. I want to thank the board and officers of the Pennsylvania Sports Hall of Fame for tonight. I also want to acknowledge some of the other honorees, notably Matt Barr and Chuck Vicina, 2 of the all-time greats at Penn State in football, not just as players, but also as people as well. My father was awfully proud of both of you. I also would be remiss if I didn't mention Fogue Fazio. Although my dad competed against your dad, he had so much respect for him as a person and as a coach. I want to mention P.J. Carlissimo. When you had your great run to the finals, my dad watched every game and he said, "That's a Scranton boy." He knew your father, knew him well, and every time they showed your dad, my dad got a big smile on his face. I also want to acknowledge what Christy Cowell said tonight. I have children of my own and I see a lot of young people here. I hope you heard what she said about the struggles starting out. We have a tendency in society now to look at the end product, to look at that Olympian or that great pro, and we forget that it starts out with small steps and with an 8-year-old sitting on the side of a pool saying, "I don't want to do this anymore." But you persevere. You realize greatness is never easy, and I want to thank you for that message tonight as well. And it is with great humility that I, on behalf of my mother, Sue Paterno, and our entire family, stand among you to accept this honor from my father, Joseph Vincent Paterno. Although he remained proud to have been born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, he came to think of Pennsylvania as home. They say when the people in your neighborhood, the people who know you best, choose to honor you, it is the most meaningful. That is certainly the case tonight. When this was announced a few months ago, I was asked by a reporter what it would mean to my father and what it meant for his legacy in light of the events of the last few months of his life. I need not go into the details, but there has been time to reflect on what this has meant to his family. And when I say family, I mean Penn Staters, because that was truly his extended family. Understand this. You don't have to have a degree from Penn State to be a Penn Stater. It is a shared set of ideals, values, and commitment to a cause bigger than oneself. In November of 2011, the casting of blame fell not just on Joe Paterno, but on everyone in that family. The resulting months saw drastic changes in the crafting of a false narrative that hurt all Penn Staters. Whether we want to admit it or not, Penn Staters have walked a different path in the eyes of many since those events. But that is changing. The rays of the truth sunlight are returning to Penn State, and tonight's award is recognition of that. If he were here tonight, Joe Paterno would be the first to credit generations and decades of people who helped make Penn State the example of success with honor. He'd credit coaches, administrators, professors, team doctors, trainers, academic advisors, equipment managers, their families, and above all, the student athletes who made the commitment to excel on the field and, far more importantly, in the classroom and as people. He would tell you those people gave Joe Paterno so much more than he could have ever given them. This award is not for an individual. It recognizes a program whose core foundation was the ideal of the student athlete, the pursuit of producing people who were better in all aspects of their lives when they left Penn State than when they arrived. Even after decades, that goal remained. Over his last 7 years as head coach, Penn State teams compiled the 6th best record in the country. But most importantly, and what he was most proud of, Penn State was the only program in the country to win over 77% of our games and, more importantly, graduate over 80% of our football student athletes. The enduring foundation of the program was revealed to me once during my coaching career when he and I were walking home from a game. We walked home after every game for 17 years. He would give me advice, and this one time he gave me advice on being a parent. He said, "When you become a parent, you're only as happy as your least happy child." That carried over to the program. The happiness of the student athletes in our program was not because of material goods or attained by permissive attitudes allowing players to do what they wanted. It was about standards, about challenging men, both coaches and players, to understand leadership is about being respected for doing things the right way rather than being liked because you pandered to the trends of the times. No matter their race or creed, he looked at each player like they were his own and gave each an equal opportunity and demanded an unyielding standard of success on the field and in the classroom. That was the bedrock upon which a foundation for Penn State's program was built for decades. It was a house built on rock, impervious to the floodwaters of changing times and values, and not built on the shifting sands of superficial lip service to excellence. In the way that success with honor was created, an enduring legacy built by countless people that will ultimately outlast the temporary challenges of a false narrative. There are countless examples in history and in college football where rewriting history and denying traditions and obscuring the truth have failed. Almost 3.5 years after the Penn State administration chose to tear down a statue of Joe Paterno, I did not watch it. In fact, I didn't really care at the time. As time has moved, I came to learn from Penn Staters and the people of this Commonwealth that while the statue was an image of Joe Paterno, it was really a symbol of something they all shared, a decades-long journey of success with honor. Joe Paterno would tell you all the honors of his life were shared honors, shared with people who made it happen on the field, in the classroom, and with countless people across the country who embraced what Penn State stood for. This honor is shared with Penn Staters who did their part to support those values and stay well within not only established NCAA rules, but also the ethics of fair play, sportsmanship, and to carry ourselves with class. Together we built a shining city on a hill, a model for how big-time college football can attain an honorable excellence in competition and in life. One reporter commented to me that since the events of November 2011, this was among the first major public recognitions of Joe Paterno. That is true, and it is most fitting that it is here in Pennsylvania. For over 6 decades, this was his neighborhood, this was his home, and the people here were the ones who knew him best. It only makes sense that those nearest and dearest to him would be the first to recognize a life that was so broad and so big, but a life made possible by the same people who honor him tonight. One day that broad image may indeed come back, and if it does, keep in mind that like this honor tonight, it is simply not representative of one man. It honors all who are on that journey with him together. Thank you very much, and I thank you for your indulgence.
Yes, Trustee Oldsy.
Thank you for your patience, Chairman Mosser. I too would like to read an important letter into the record at tonight's Board of Trustees meeting. It is shorter than what Trustee Lubrano just read, but equally important. It is dated November the 5th, 2015. It is a letter from Sue Paterno to all the Penn State football lettermen. It begins simply, "Dear Letterman, November 9th is the 4th anniversary of Joe's firing by the Board of Trustees and their wholesale indictment of the football program and the Penn State culture. Joe and I knew they had acted rashly, but we were hopeful that with the benefit of time, they would correct their mistakes and set the record straight. While much progress has been made in the last 4 years, the administration, the NCAA, and Louis Freeh have yet to acknowledge fully the extent of their errors. Worse yet, They are still waging an all-out campaign to keep the facts from ever seeing the light of day. I write to you now to let you know that we have not given up on setting the record straight, and we never will. 4 years of secrecy are enough. The victims, their families, each of you, and everyone who cares about Penn State deserve the truth. The sad history of this case is that the Board of Trustees took a terrible tragedy and made it worse. Their complete reliance on the deeply flawed free report and their total capitulation to the NCAA were terrible mistakes that needlessly and recklessly tarnished the reputation of this great university. Our only options are to give in and accept the allegation that Penn State was consumed with a corrupt culture or fight for the truth. You and I know what Joe would have expected us to do. Penn State's culture is a treasure. It is worth fighting for, and the truth is not to be feared, but embraced. Because these issues are currently being litigated, I'm not able to comment on specific aspects of the case, but what I can tell you is that we respect the courts and we welcome a chance to have the facts finally reviewed in a setting that honors transparency and due process. Finally, I want you to know how proud I am of each of you. What you do with your lives is the ultimate testament to the Penn State culture. My life continues to be consumed with children and grandchildren and raising money for causes Joe and I cared so much about. I also continue to pray for the victims. I hope that the lessons of the Sandusky case will open eyes throughout our society. I cherish my memories with all of you. I love Penn State more every day, which is why I will see this case to its proper resolution. I wish you and your families the best for the holidays. With love, Sue. She includes a postscript. It says simply, please hold the date September 17, 2016, because it marks the 50th anniversary of Joe's first game as a head coach. We're planning a special event to honor all that you accomplished. I'll be back to you with more information on that. That's the end of the letter. My comments are very brief. Sue is correct about Penn State's culture. It is, and it always has been, a treasure. In my opinion, and in my experiences over the past 6 decades as a State College native and as a loyal Penn Stater, Sue Paterno is a treasure as well. After all that this university has put the Paterno family through, Sue remains a Penn State stalwart, unceasingly loyal to her alma mater. She spends her time, effort, and her amazing energy raising money and resources for our world-class College of Liberal Arts, our libraries, the Special Olympics, many other worthy causes. There are individuals on this board and within the administration who continue to take the position that at some point in the future there'll come a proper time to make things right with Sue and the Paterno family. I suggest to all of you and anyone else who shares that position that the proper time to have made things right has long since passed us by. We should wait no longer. We've wasted precious time being on the wrong side of legal and other issues. We have a hugely valuable relationship to rebuild and a once-in-a-lifetime legacy to honor. I suggest we get started today. If we have the courage to work together, we can still make things right. Thank you.